Good morning. It's another fresh edition of your breakfast from Leadership Television Inside Nigeria. My name is Winifred. Today is Tuesday, November 26, 2024. On today's show, we are just going to be looking at front headline stories and their topical issues, including Nigeria's most influential newspaper, Leadership. As we normally do on the program, we plug off with Leadership newspaper. Leadership's leading story today says 16 days of activism. World leaders worry over Nigeria's GBV rates. 16 days of activism. World leaders worry over Nigeria's GBV rate. GBV means gender. Nigeria needs 1 trillion naira to tackle menace. World Bank, UN. Say 42% of Nigerian women are financially excluded. Mrs. Tinubu seeks support for GBV victims survivors. As the 16-day activism against gender-based violence commences, world leaders are worried about the rising scourge in Nigeria. UN Women and the World Bank have said that Nigeria needs about 1 trillion naira to tackle gender-based violence. They equated the cost of addressing sexual and gender-based violence (SGBV) in Nigeria to about 1.5%, that is 1.06 trillion naira of her annual gross domestic product (GDP), the country's economy. The international agencies made this known at the Ministry of Women Affairs flag off of the 2024 16 days activism against sexual and gender-based violence in Abuja. The leading story today on Leadership: 16 days of activism. World leaders worry over Nigeria's gender-based violence rate. Aside that, other stories gracing the cover of Leadership today. Bandits kill 32 in fresh Benue attack. 20 missing in Delta boat mishap. 160,000 children living with HIV coming from Naka. Women protest over 262 husbands, children in prison. Above the masthead of Leadership, federal government defends borrowing amid surplus revenue reports. Northern youths give ACF, that is Arewa Consultative Forum, 7 days to reinstate chairman. This is following the developing story. The Arewa chairman was actually suspended following his remarks that the North will support Northern presidential candidate in 2027 election. Now, Northern youths give ACF 7 days to reinstate the chairman. The story runs on page 140 on Leadership newspaper. With that, we move to the page 3 where we have our stand. Today's stand is on tackling vote buying proactively. Tackling vote buying proactively. The Edo and Ondo off-cycle elections point to the unfortunate fact that the crisis of vote buying and selling keeps getting worse at every election. Despite the outcry of civil society and other observers, this societal malaise persists. Paragraphs from that stand today on Leadership: tackling vote buying proactively. From our stand, we move to the back page of the paper where we have Tuesday column with Abdurrauf Aliyu. Today's Tuesday column, he's writing on what stops policies from succeeding. What stops policies from succeeding? In quote, public policies often fail because of agent interest, where those in power pursue personal gains instead of societal benefits, especially in environments like Nigeria, where corruption exacerbates policy failure. Quote from that Tuesday column with Abdurrauf Aliyu: what stops policies from succeeding? Of course, these you have to find answers to, conclusion of the headline stories and inside stories as you log on to the website of Leadership, www.leadership.ng. Daily Sun is next on our lineup today, and Daily Sun's leading story says bloodbath in Benue as terrorists strike. Over 30 killed in 2 local governments as NAS airstrikes eliminate scores of insurgents destroy their food depot in Lake Chad. The story runs on page 4 and 5 of Daily Sun. Bloodbath in Benue as terrorists strike. Over 30 killed in 2 local governments as NAV airstrikes eliminate scores of insurgents destroy their food depot in Lake Chad. HIV/AIDS, 1.6 million undergoing treatment coming from NACA. Catholic Church procession turns bloody in Abia, 2 worshippers die, many injured. Emeka Offor donates 10 houses worth 200 million naira to widows in Anambra. Absence of judge stalls Nnamdi Kanu's 50 billion naira suit against federal government. We move towards the masthead of Daily Sun. Federal government asks varsities to establish sexual assault referral centers. CAN seeks policies to protect women's rights in Nigeria. That is the Christian Association of Nigeria. CAN seeks policies to protect women's rights in Nigeria. EFCC amends charge against Binance after Gambarian's discharge. The story runs on page 4 of Daily Sun. And that brings to a close the review of front headline stories today on Daily Sun newspaper. For more, log on to the website www.thesun.ng. From that Daily Sun headline story, we move to the next paper on our menu, and that is The Punch. The Punch says Lakurawa, federal government plans more troops as search spreads in North. Lakurawa, federal government plans more troops as search spreads in North. Northwest states procure vehicles, orders for troops, search spreads to North Central. CDS plans more military bases. Bono flood victims get federal government palliatives. We have the pictures beneath that headline story. Bono flood victims get federal government palliatives. 2025 budget, 13 states commit 3.8 trillion naira to salaries, orders. US-based Nigerians back 30-year jail for $3.5 million romance scam. As workers illegally retained 748 million naira government vehicles, AUG reports. Beside the masthead of The Punch, EFCC places Obaseki on watch list, probes contracts. Above the masthead of The Punch, states tackle NNPCL over extra 1 trillion naira subsidy payments. JAPA workers on federal government payroll resigning amid probe, head of civil service. Labour protests NBS drop in unemployment rate report. The story continues on page 21 of The Punch newspaper. That brings to a close the review of front headline stories on Inside Nigeria this morning. For more, log on to the website of The Punch, even as we move to the next paper on our menu, and that is Vanguard. Vanguard says GDP growth figures, more work needs to be done. Tinubu welcomes third quarter growth figure. Services sector drives Nigeria's GDP up 3.46%. NBS as oil agri sector's growth slows. Says unemployment rate falls to 4.3% in second quarter 2024. Southeast, sit at home persists despite Simon Ekpa's arrest. Plateau, Taraba, Katsina seek approval to spend 1.8 trillion naira in 2025. And in sports, Olise drums support for Iguavoen to lead Super Eagles. And above the masthead of Vanguard, mixed reactions trade bid to privatize Port Harcourt, Warri, Kaduna refineries. 2027, opposition parties move Granite Alliance in court against APC, Tinubu. Imami condemns smashing of Chevron pipelines in Delta. Federal government announced we borrowed based on your approvals. With that, we also conclude review of front headline stories on Vanguard this morning. For more, log on to the website of Vanguard, www.vanguardngr.com. From Vanguard, we move to the last paper we have on our menu for review this Tuesday, and that is The Guardian. The Guardian says GDP defies inflation shocks as more Nigerians take informal jobs. Beneath that, on The Guardian, we have the illustration, economic overview. We have labor force and unemployment. Unemployment rate second quarter of 2024 was 4.3%. Population and labor force We have total population 217 million naira. 217 million. Informal employment 93%, self-employed 86%. And in the middle, we have the map of Nigeria. We have gross domestic product, GDP of $363 billion in 2023. We have GDP per capita, 1,672.8 million dollars in 2023. And we have the real growth rate of 3.46%. That is the third quarter of 2024. And on the right, we have balance of trade, second quarter 2024. We have 6.9 trillion naira. Then we have exports 19.4 trillion naira, imports 12.47 trillion naira. Debt and inflation, public debt stood at 134.3 trillion naira, second quarter of 2024. We have, that is 22% of GDP. We have inflation rate 33.88% of public debt. The illustration beneath that leading story on The Guardian: GDP defies inflation shocks as more Nigerians take informal jobs. Federal government defends borrowing as NNPCL, FIROS, customs surpass 2024 targets. Minimum wage Cross River workers embark on strike, reject government's plea. NNPC defends output amid confusion over oil production data. Edwin Clark decries Rivers political crisis, what lawmakers' defection. NBA slams EFCC boss for accusing lawyers of money laundering. Despite challenges, Nigeria's economy grows by 3.46%. Disco's record 54.2 billion naira revenue shortfall in September. Sit at home, schools close over gunmen attacks in Anambra. With that, we also conclude the front headline stories review today on The Guardian newspaper. Today, Tuesday, November 26, 2024. For continuation of these headline stories on The Guardian, log on to the website www.guardian.ng. From The Guardian, also, we've come to the end of today's Inside Nigeria. Today, Tuesday, November 26, 2024. Don't forget to join us for another fresh edition of the program Inside Nigeria, same time, same station tomorrow. My name is Winifred Igbo. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last